The first thing that returned was the pain. A dull, throbbing ache behind his eyes that pulsed in time with a heartbeat he wasn't entirely sure was his own. Then came the metallic taste of recycled air, the sterile scent of antiseptic, and the cold, unyielding surface beneath him. Captain Elias Vance opened his eyes to the blinding white of a medbay ceiling. Not a field tent, not the gritty interior of a dropship, but a proper, clean Alliance medbay. Memory flooded back in a nauseating wave. The drop on Xylos, the searing flash of a plasma grenade, the sensation of flying, and then nothing. He tried to sit up, and a wave of dizziness forced him back down. A med droid glided into his field of vision, its optical sensor blinking a calm blue. Captain Vance, your vitals are stabilizing. You have sustained significant tissue damage and a grade 3 concussion. Please remain still. The squad. Elias croaked, his throat raw. Your unit sustained casualties, the droid replied with program neutrality. You are the sole survivor of your immediate team. Your actions in destroying the Xylian artillery nest have been noted as valorous. Sole survivor. The words hit him harder than the grenade had. He closed his eyes, seeing the faces of his team, Jax with his stupid jokes, and Rhea, who could field strip a pulse rifle in under 10 seconds. Gone. All gone. A hollow emptiness opened up inside him, far more profound than any physical injury. He was expecting a medal, maybe a promotion. He'd seen the vids. The war hero comes home, gets a parade, tries to forget. He never expected the other thing. It was delivered to his private recovery room 2 days later. Once he could sit up without the room spinning. A high-ranking officer he didn't recognize, a Colonel Sterling, entered with thin, officious smile that didn't reach his eyes. He was followed by a figure shrouded in a gray, hooded cloak. Captain Vance, Sterling began, his voice slick as engine oil. On behalf of a grateful alliance, we extend our deepest gratitude for your service and sacrifice. In recognition of your extraordinary heroism, beyond the standard commendations and bonus, we are granting you a unique reward, a token of our appreciation, and a helper for your transition to civilian life. With a theatrical flourish, Sterling gestured to the cloaked figure. The colonel pulled back the hood. Elias's breath caught in his throat. He had seen Xylians before, only through the crosshairs of his rifle. They were tall, slender, with chitinous plates of armor and multifaceted eyes that reflected a hostile world. This was not that. She was, by any human standard, breathtakingly beautiful. Her skin was the color of moonlight on pearl, smooth and seeming to hold a faint luminescence of its own. Her hair was a cascade of silver white, so fine it looked like spun silk. Her eyes were the most striking feature, large, slightly upturned in the color of amethyst, with pupils that were vertical slits of deepest black. She wore a simple, gray tunic that did little to hide her graceful form, but it was a slender, silver band encircling her throat that made Elias's stomach clench. A control collar. This is Lyra, Sterling said, his tone that of a man presenting a new appliance. A submissive strain of Xylian, genetically curated for obedience and service. She understands Terran Basic and is programmed to attend to your needs. Consider her a gift, your personal property. The colonel pressed a small, sleek datapad into Elias's hand. This is a control interface. Location tracking, basic command override, and, if necessary, a pacification feature. She is quite valuable, Captain. Do try to take care of her. With a final, dismissive nod, Sterling turned and left, the door hissing shut behind him. Elias was alone with the alien. He stared at her. She stood perfectly still, her hands clasped in front of her, her head bowed slightly, those incredible amethyst eyes fixed on the floor. She was a slave, a beautiful, sentient being given him like a piece of furniture. The hollowness inside him twisted into something ugly and cold. This was his reward for the deaths of his friends? This object? Anger, hot and sharp, rose in his chest. Anger at the alliance, at the callousness of it all. But he was too tired, too broken, to give it voice. He just felt a profound, weary disgust. You can look at me, he said, his voice rough. Slowly, hesitantly, she raised her head. Her gaze met his for a fleeting second before darting away again. There was no emotion in her eyes. No fear, no resentment, no hope. Just a deep, empty stillness, like a placid lake. It was more unnerving than any hatred could have been. The first week at his assigned quarters on the starbase was an exercise in strained silence. Elias ignored her as much as possible. He'd grunt a yes or no to her softly spoken questions about meals, and otherwise lose himself in the bottom of a glass or the grim reports from the front he couldn't stop reading. Lyra was a ghost. She moved with a silent, efficient grace, cleaning, preparing food, always present but never intrusive. She was a perfect slave, and it made his skin crawl. The change began with a nightmare. A common one. The roar of explosions. Jax's face contorted in a silent scream. Elias woke with a jolt, sweating and disoriented, his heart hammering against his ribs. The room was dark. He fumbled for the light, but a soft, cool hand touched his arm. He flinched away. Lyra was standing by his bed, holding a glass of water. She hadn't turned on the harsh overhead light. Instead, a small, bioluminescent fungus in a pot on the desk, a Xylian plant she must have requested, provided a gentle blue-green glow. "You were calling out in your sleep?" she said, her voice a whisper like wind chimes. "I thought water might help." He took the glass, his fingers brushing against hers. They were cool and smooth. "I didn't mean to wake you," he muttered, the automatic courtesy feeling absurd given the circumstances. "I do not sleep deeply," she replied simply. She didn't move away, just stood there in the soothing light, a silent, calm presence in the aftermath of his terror. It was the first crack in the wall between them. After that, he started to notice things. He saw the way she sometimes paused by the viewport, staring at the stars with an unreadable expression. He saw the delicate, almost artistic way she arranged the food on his plate, a small act of creation in her sterile existence. He saw the faint, silvery patterns on her skin that seemed to shimmer when she passed through a patch of sunlight. One evening, he found her looking at a datapad he'd left open, displaying a gallery of Terran art, classical landscapes from Earth. "Do you understand this?" he asked, more curious than accusatory. She looked up, startled, as if caught in a forbidden act. The representation of light on water is familiar. We have lakes of liquid crystal on Xylos that catch the light of our twin suns in a similar way." She fell silent immediately, as if she had said too much. It was the first time she had volunteered information about her home world. Elias slowly put down the control datapad. He had never used it, and he realized with a jolt that he never would. He walked over to her. She tensed, her posture becoming rigid, expecting command or worse. Instead, he pointed to a painting of a forest. "What about this? Is there anything like this on your world?" She looked from the painting to his face, her amethyst eyes wide with confusion and a flicker of something else, curiosity. "Our forests are taller. The canopy glows at night, but the feeling of quiet is the same." That was the beginning of their real conversation. Tentatively, awkwardly, they started to talk. He told her about Earth, about the smell of rain on dry Earth, a thing she couldn't comprehend. She described the singing sands of the Xylian deserts and the vast, fungal forest that pulsed with light. He learned that the submissive strain was a lie. She was an exile from a tribe that had opposed the war, captured and collared by her own people before being traded to the Alliance as a political pawn. The collar was not just a control mechanism. It was a brand of shame. She was not a slave. She was a prisoner of war, just like him, in a different kind of cage. The anger in Elias began to melt, replaced by a burning shame of his own. He had accepted her, had even, in his darkest self-pitying moments, thought of her as his due. He was no better than Sterling. One afternoon, he made a decision. He called her to the main room. She stood before him, waiting. "Lyra," he said, his voice firm. "This ends now." He held up the control datapad, her eyes fixed on it, and for the first time, he saw genuine fear in them. She thought he was going to use a pacification feature, to punish her for some unknown transgression. He pressed his thumb to the screen. A menu flashed. He navigated to the primary command. Decommission collar. Authorization Vance Elias. Captain. A warning flash read. Warning. This action is permanent. Subject will be unrestrained. He selected confirm. There was a soft, audible click. The silver band around Lyra's throat loosened and fell to the floor with a faint clatter. She gasped, her hands flying to her neck, her fingers tracing the unmarked skin where the cold metal had been for so long. She looked at him, her expression a torrent of emotions, Disbelief, confusion, awe, and a dawning, terrifying hope. "You're free," Elias said, his own voice thick with emotion. "I can't give you back your world or your family, but I can give you this. You are not my slave. You never should have been." Tears, like liquid amethyst, welled in her eyes and traced paths down her moon-pale cheeks. She didn't speak. She just took a step forward, then another, until she was standing right in front of him. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached out and took his hand, the hand that held a rifle, that had signed the acceptance of his reward, that had just signed her freedom. She pressed his calloused palm against her cheek. It was not a gesture of submission. It was a gesture of connection, of gratitude, of a shared understanding that transcended species and war. The human soldier had woken to find his unexpected reward. But the true reward wasn't the beautiful alien slave he'd been given. It was a free woman who chose to stay, and the fragile, unexpected friendship that began to heal the wounds they both carried. The war was still raging out among the stars, but in that quiet room, a different kind of peace had just been won.